Welcome to World History Lesson 7. Ancient Greece. Our lesson objectives will be: identify the characteristics of Greek culture, discuss the achievements of Alexander the Great, identify the characteristics of Athens and Sparta, discuss the contributions of ancient Greek civilization. Greece is a peninsula located in the southeast part of Europe. Greece is surrounded by the Aegean Sea on the east and the Mediterranean Sea on the south and west. Greece includes many small islands, and its mainland is very mountainous. Mount Olympus has always been very important to the Greeks because it was regarded as the home of the Greek gods. Because Greece has very little fertile land, Greeks have always been a seafaring people. The Greek economy is based upon fishing, trading, sheep herding, winemaking, and some agriculture, mostly olive groves. Mainland Greece is so mountainous that cities located there have always been isolated from each other. The development of ancient Greek society was influenced by Greece's geography. Lack of fertile farmland and a long seacoast meant that sea trading and fishing were important to the Greeks than farming. A system of isolated city-states developed because of the mountainous terrain of Greece. These mountains acted as geographical barriers between the city-states. As a result, Greek city-states developed independently of each other, each city-state with its own government, economy, and culture. The most important city-states of ancient Greece were Athens and Sparta. Athens and Sparta represent two very different types of Greek city-states. Before 600 BC, Athens was a city-state run by a few aristocrats. Most Athenians were slaves who lived under very poor conditions. During this period, Athens had to import most of its food, and to pay for this, they exported wine, olive oil, and pottery. Around 600 BC, a leader named Solon freed many of the slaves gave Athens a constitution. As time went on, all male Athenians were permitted to take part in the government, although women and slaves were not. Nevertheless, the government in Athens was one of the first in record to create a democratic form of government. That is, at least some of the citizens were allowed to participate in the running of the government. Athens slowly developed into the leading city-state of Greece and also became the wealthiest due to large deposits of nearby silver mines. The people of Athens believed in a strong educational system, stressing art, literature, and music. The emphasis of education was for males only. Sparta, which is located in the southwest of Greece, developed differently from much of Greece. Sparta was ruled by a strong military government. Only a few Spartans were permitted to be citizens, with most of the people living as slaves. Spartans made their living by farming. Sparta's government was run by a council of 5 men. All Spartan males were drafted into the army at age 7, where Spartans' military might was routinely displayed. Spartans believed that the most important thing a man could be was courageous. Although they were denied citizenship, Spartan women were also trained in gymnastics and physical endurance, and held more legal and social rights than any other Greek women of that time. The various city-states of Greece shared the same language, believed in the same gods, and had common trading partners. The Greeks considered any non-Greek to be a barbarian. Geographical barriers such as mountains and the seas surrounding Greece made it difficult for the city-states to unite. As a result of these geographical barriers, different cultures and governments developed in each city-state. The Persian Wars. During the 5th century BC, the Greek city-states united because they were being invaded from the north by the Persians. This was the beginning of the Persian Wars. Athens successfully defeated the Persian invasion. The Persians invaded again 10 years later, and after a hard-fought battle, the united Greeks were defeated and forced to retreat. The Greeks suffered greatly during the Persian Wars as Athens was burned. As a result of Athens burning and the Persians' harsh treatment of Greeks, Greek patriotism rose to a very high level. In the last Persian War, Athens and united Greece was once again victorious. This was the beginning of the golden age when Greece's democracy and culture were at their height. The Peloponnesian Wars. For 50 years, Greeks enjoyed relative peace and prosperity. This ended when Sparta and their allied city-states attacked Athens. The Athenians debated whether to fight or sue for peace and failed to prepare for war. This inaction and the fact Athenians could not agree on how to protect Athens, allowed Sparta, its allied city-states, and the Persians soon defeated Athens and its allies. Athens made peace with its various enemies in 404 BC. Fun fact: Sparta was generous in victory. Corinth wanted Athens leveled. They never wanted to put up with this bickering and warring again. But Sparta said no, as the Spartans admired bravery of Athens' soldiers. Instead, for the next 10 years, Athens was an outpost of Sparta, under Spartan rule. After 10 years, Sparta gave Athens her independence. Athens began to regain her former glory. Macedonia, a country to the north of Greece, had eyed Greece's splendor for some time. King Philip of Macedonia knew the Greek city-states were weakened by the Peloponnesian War. Macedonia would soon move to conquer all the Greek city-states. Alexander the Great. The greatest period of ancient Greek history began during the 4th century BC, when Greek civilization spread around the Mediterranean Sea into Western Asia. The Greek economy was on the rise and trade flourished. During this period, Greek art, literature, science, philosophy, and mathematics reached a high point and is known as Hellenistic Period. The Hellenistic period lasted about 300 years. The Hellenistic period began when King Philip, the ruler of Macedonia, a section of Greece in the mountainous north, invaded mainland Greece. King Philip's army was able to defeat the various Greek city-states as King Philip set out to unify the country. King Philip sent his son Alexander to school in Athens, where Alexander studied under one of the world's greatest teachers, Aristotle. Alexander was 20 years old when he became ruler of Greece. Alexander was to spread Greek culture around the known world, and with his well-disciplined army, he nearly accomplished his goal. Alexander introduced Greek civilization to Egypt, where he was welcomed as a god. In Egypt, he founded the port city of Alexandria. Alexander then looked east. Alexander invaded and defeated the Persians and took control of Asia, from Asia Minor to India. Alexander's key policy was to unite the Greek Empire under one government. He believed in a policy of cultural fusion, meaning that all people living under the Greek Empire would be united through a common culture. One of the ways Alexander worked to accomplish this is through education. By establishing schools of Greek thought in foreign lands, Alexander hoped that the young people would think and act like Greeks. When Alexander died of malaria at the end of the 4th century in 323 BC, he was only 33 years old, but had nearly accomplished his goals. Greek colonies and schools were set up throughout his empire. Upon his death, his empire was divided into 3 kingdoms, each ruled by one of his generals. Macedonia, including parts of Greece, was ruled by Antigonus. Syria, including most of southwestern Asia, was governed by Seleucus, and Egypt was governed by Ptolemy. All of these kingdoms remained independent until the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, when they came under Roman rule. As time passed, the Hellenistic period emerged from a blend of Greek and Eastern cultures. Greek contributions. The ancient Greeks can be given credit for providing the modern world with a great number of cultural ideas. The greatest contribution to the modern world passed on by the ancient Greeks was the foundation of modern democracy. Throughout the empire, Greek democratic principles and ideas were passed along to many different people. Democratic expression would be carried out throughout elections, jury trials, and debates of many future civilizations. Good citizenship and patriotism was an important cornerstone of this contribution. Greek art and architecture. In the area of art and architecture, the Greeks left us magnificent buildings. The Parthenon, the temple of the goddess Athena, located on top of the Acropolis in Athens, still stands today. Other beautiful examples of Greek architecture are found on the island of Delphi and on the Peloponnesian Peninsula, where Olympia and Corinth are located. The Greeks mastered the use of mathematics in architecture. This was especially true of the design of Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns which surrounded their temples. Another mathematically constructed building is King Agamemnon's large tomb in Mycenae, which resembles a beehive almost to perfection. Some of the most famous sculptures in the world were created by the Greeks. Early Greek sculptures made bronze and marble figures that were very stiff and formal. Later sculptors, Phidias of the 5th century and Praxiteles of the 4th century, used the natural lines of the human body and created figures of much grace and poise. Greek religion. Early Greeks were polytheistic, meaning they believed in many gods. The Greek gods possessed many human qualities, and like tribal chiefs, they were thought to have a great deal of power. The Greeks believed that the gods were responsible for all that happened on earth. The Greeks believed that their gods lived on Mount Olympus, with Zeus being the king of the Greek gods. Even as time went on and Greek thinking became more rational, Greeks maintained their belief in many gods. Greek literature. Greek literature is read by millions of people today. Greek historians such as Herodotus, known as the father of history, and Thucydides provided the modern world with realistic accounts of Greek events. Aeschylus, a writer of tragedies, wrote many human will versus destiny, which is the idea that the gods controlled events in people's lives. Two other writers of tragedies were Sophocles, who wrote about fate of humans, and Euripides, who wrote about social protest. Greek literature portrayed the gods as superhumans who sought control over man's destiny. Much has been written about the relationship between humans and the gods described in the Greek myths. Myths are stories about the relationship between humans and the gods. Greek philosophy. Philosophy is a Greek word meaning love of wisdom. The philosophers Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle are still studied today. While Socrates left no writings, his ideas on reasoning through debate were passed on by his student Plato. Plato opened the first center for higher learning in Greece called the Academy. In his book The Republic, Plato describes a country run by philosopher kings where the goodness and wisdom of the rulers would be passed on to the people. Aristotle, a student of Plato and the tutor of Alexander the Great, taught how to think logically. Aristotle was the first to classify animals by species. Greek philosophers believed there was a logical, scientific explanation for every event in nature. They believed that anything could be explained, leading to scientific or logical reasoning. Science, mathematics, and medicine. The Greeks contributed to a great deal of our knowledge of science, mathematics, and medicine. In science, the Greeks were the first to begin expressing the idea that Earth moves around the sun and that Earth spins on an axis. Euclid and Pythagoras provided mathematicians with principles of geometry that remain undisputed today. Finally, Greek doctors were the first to dissect human bodies, to make detailed drawings of the brain, and to distinguish between motor and sensory nerves. The most notable medical school was led by Hippocrates, and doctors today still take the Hippocratic Oath. What next? Take the time to go back and review the lesson on your own. After your review, complete the lesson review for the lesson and submit for grading. Remember, your submission should follow all of the rules for standard written English. All submissions must be written in your own words and sources used cited at the end. How to cite resources in APA format. When you reference a source within an APA-style paper, whether it is using a direct quote, repurposing an image, or simply referring to an idea or theory, you should insert an in-text citation, the author's surname, and the date of publication within parentheses, straight after a direct quote. The URL citationmachine.net will assist you in creating citations.